Hello friends, welcome to today's daily devotion. I'm Kerry Wood from the Goldston Methodist Church in Goldston, North Carolina, and today we're looking at Romans the 11th chapter, verses 17 through 24. Yesterday, Paul described that if the root is holy, then so are the branches, and he continues to talk about branches today. Hear now these words. Some, however, of the branches were broken off, and you, who were only a wild olive, were grafted in among them, and came to share with them the root, which is the source of the richness of the cultivated olive. And do not exult over the other branches. But if you do exult over them, remember that you do not support the root, but that the root supports you. But branches, you will say, were broken off so that I might be grafted in. True, it was because of their want of faith that they were broken off. And it is because of your faith that you are standing. Do not think too highly of yourself, but beware. For if God did not spare the natural branches, neither will he spare you. See then both the goodness and the severity of God, his severity towards those who fell and his goodness towards you, provided that you continue to confide in that goodness. Otherwise, you also will be cut off. And they too, if they do not continue in their unbelief, will be grafted in, for God has it in his power to graft them in again. If you were cut off from your natural stock, a wild olive, and were grafted contrary to the course of nature on a good olive, much more will they, the natural branches, be grafted back into their parent tree. So Paul is giving us an extended metaphor of the olive branch. And it reminds me of Jesus in John's Gospel as he describes himself as the grapevine, and that his father is the vintner and taking care of the branches. And so if we think about Jesus' description of the branches and bearing fruit, and here Paul talking about the olive tree and the grafting in that takes place, then we can understand that this is a metaphor of grace, an organic metaphor. What I find fascinating is that Christianity, in the rise of modernity, has become so much more mechanically oriented that we begin to think of life as a machine where there is a certain part that's designed to go and do a certain function, and as long as that part works, then the machine operates, and if the part breaks, then the whole machine breaks down. But the actual way that God tends to describe who we are is organic, not mechanical. And in organic, there is such a thing as grafting, where you can bring the branch of one plant and the root of another plant and bring them together, and somehow nature knows how to bring those into creating one new life. In fact, this is a big part of what the modern farming is all about. All of our fruit trees, they are created by the grafting on of different types of plants, of different types of trees, and bringing them together to create what we want them to be. That's what the Honeycrisp apple is. That's what the Fuji apple is. These are all examples of grafting. But this is not a new thing. This is an ancient thing, and it is a holy thing. The root that Paul is describing is the Jewish nation and their relationship with God. as revealed through the Old Testament, and continued in Jesus Christ as the fulfillment of the Old Testament, and we are allowed to be grafted in, our wild, sinful selves, into the holiness of Jesus Christ, and somehow, by a miracle of God, we get grafted into and made holy in that process. And that holiness process is triggered by God's grace and our faith. And Paul thinks that if the Jews will return in faithfulness, then God will graft them in. But here's the danger. Those of us that are already in, we should not be looking down our noses at those who were not already in. And I think that's one of the biggest problems of the current Christian church. We are acting very un-Christ-like towards those who aren't already followers. Why do you think so many non-believers look at Christians and say, why in the world would I want to join them? They're mean, they're arrogant, they are so, the way I used to hear my granny say, highfalutin, that they don't want to be a part of us. So friends, here in this middle of Romans 11, we get a very powerful and profound lesson. God is holy. God's grace is what matters, never who or what we are. And let's see what Paul has to say next when we come tomorrow to our next daily devotion.